Hello, and welcome to Insightful Conversations with your host, Three Principles practitioner, Adey-Jones. Join her each week as she welcomes some of the world's leading Three Principles teachers and practitioners who share how this understanding has dramatically improved the quality of their lives and the lives of those they work with.
I have two amazing guests with me, and they are Rudi and Jules Kennard. In 1992, Rudi experienced a profound and spontaneous shift in consciousness that changed his life. Since then, Rudi has trained with Sydney Banks and Roger Mills and has worked with over a dozen different populations, from Nepali earthquake survivors to school children and prison inmates. His free video resources took him 2 years voluntary work to co-create and has now touched well over 1 million people. Jules had a spontaneous and extreme shift in consciousness after a number of tragic events. With this shift, Jules navigated the death of her teenage daughter with resilience and love. Jules' story has touched the lives of thousands, and before starting her joint business, spent months helping others cope with loss. Jules now works with Rudi to help others uncover the love and resilience already within them, no matter the circumstances. Hi, thank you so much for joining me today. I just told you earlier I'm complete fans of yours and love your work. So I'm really feeling very, very blessed and privileged to have you here today.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Thank you so much.
Oh, wonderful. So actually, I always love to hear how people came across the principles. So either one of you start.
Go ahead.
So I was 20, went traveling, had this mind-blowing experience where who I thought I was, I wasn't.
Wow.
And yeah, I could talk about that, but fundamentally, from not believing in anything spiritual, believing that we lived in a very competitive, difficult world where people would take advantage of you, to seeing that the atoms that make up everything are built from compassion, built from love. And that embodied experience completely shifted everything. But I couldn't articulate it. I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't help other people experience that. And so I studied lots of different things, and I won't go on because it's a long, boring story, but fundamentally I came across the Three Principles in 2003, sorry. And I thought, wow, okay, this gives words to the wordless. It gives a measurement to the measureless. And it allows you to be a translator, to translate from that infinite potential of compassion or love to the human experience, how we get to experience that as in human form. And so since then, I've been very, very inspired to share this with other people. And then we kind of stumbled across one another.
Right. Mm-hmm. When Rudi helped me find the principles. So I had my son taken, and then that's when I had a major shift. And with that shift, it placed me in the perfect space for what was yet to come, and that was for my daughter, my 18-year-old daughter, to be in a fatal car accident. But I was able to somehow move forward in life with love, compassion, and wanting to help others with their loss. And then I found myself in Hawaii. In 2018 is when I stumbled upon the principles, with thanks to Rudi, and that articulates my exact experience, who we all are, the essence of life that runs through us. And I instantaneously felt not alone, because not only did I meet Rudi, but open the curtains to this beautiful community.
I resonated with that. That love lasts forever. It never, even if your loved one passes, that love that you shared and that exists, that doesn't go anywhere. That's still here. And I think that's so comforting to bring to some people that don't have that understanding, and they think that it's just, that's it, they've gone, and they mourn on such a terribly deep level. So that's just beautiful. So tell me, I know that you've been sharing these, you have this incredible website, the Innate Evolution, that you share all these resources of some of the great teachers that we all know in the Principles community. So how did that come about?
Well, originally, I co-created it with my ex-partner, Crikey, must have been a good 11 years ago. And then it was called 3principlesmovies.com. You can still get to the resources by putting it in the web browser. And at that time, there was very little happening. There weren't any Facebook groups. The only way you could see a 3 Principles practitioner was to physically go to their training, fly there. And there's very, very little online. And I remember I had a friend who was a devout skeptic who said, well, if this is so good, why isn't it more mainstream? If like Lockwood Gardens community can go from the 4th highest homicide rate in the nation to 0 homicides, well, why doesn't everybody know about this? And I was thinking, well, yeah, why don't people know about this? So we created this free resource, 2 years voluntary work, where people could watch videos, see transformational stories. We interviewed, I think the youngest person was 5, the oldest person was 90, prison inmates, corporate executives, and the commonality, they were all human and were all beautifully, uniquely different, but the power enlivening us, the logic to how we work is exactly the same for everybody. So to point to our beautifully unique diversity, but our commonality, and get that around the world, we had dozens of people emailing us saying, watch this video, it's literally changed my life. In fact, we were in Spain recently, and this big Norwegian guy spotted me and said, you're the 3 Principles movies guy. And he said he'd been locked up in his house for, how long was it? Like
years.
For years and years, blankets over the windows, couldn't leave the house, agoraphobic, depressed, and watched a few videos on the site, and now he's walking around, beautiful girlfriend,
the beautiful
being in life. And so now we've put all of those resources onto innateevolution.com and the video section, and there is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos and new interviews where people can view it all completely for free, obviously, as well as the stuff that we do as well.
Yeah, exactly, the trainings and things. I mean, it's such an incredible service, and I've pointed many people to that site to start. It's incredible when you think about it. I mean, only, like you say, 15 years ago, we didn't have that resource, and it was just basically word of mouth. But now there's, it's really spreading so far. Thank goodness the internet is good for some things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, oh God, that's so incredible. I do want to go back to both your individual stories, and I know, Jules, for you. You talk about that, we always say the principles are operating whether we know about them or not. And I know for you, give a little more context about what it was you experienced around the feelings that came up when you were faced. I mean, you did tell a beautiful story about how you lovingly released your son instead of getting in a custody battle, and you beautifully knew you had that innate wisdom inside you that said, what you felt was best for him. So share a little bit about that, because that was before the principles, but it clearly, but it points to that it's always within all of us.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there was a silence that came about just prior to my daughter's fatal car accidents, and the silence was during the court battle, and that silence offered me the power of the present moment. What I didn't realize is that I wasn't paying attention to all the busy thoughts. I knew that was happening, but I couldn't articulate that. But looking down at my daughter's physical body, it's when I realized, what am I doing? Why am I fighting? Why am I fighting to keep my son when there's such a beautiful family out there for him? A huge family to wrap around him and love him. And it's that silence, that space of silence, that innate intelligence, that feeling that's deep down inside your heart, untouched by human thought. And that's the only way I could describe it. And then I met Rudi, and I think I said to him, oh my gosh, Rudi, you're in my brain. I watched his animations, and I just said, this is it. This is it. I want to share this with the world. And then little did I know there's a huge community.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just, I want to share this with the world, and that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So
yeah, when I met Jules, she was kind of walking around in this feeling, this resonance, this space, and a word I could put it is this unconditionality, this love, like loving her son enough that she could put his needs above her needs and kind of let him go. And also the fact that, you know, Sophia, your daughter, has passed away, but Jules still has, I don't know, you're still so close and you communicate non-physically.
I feel her essence. She's just transitioned from physical to non-physical. The love is still there. It will always be there. And I feel that. I still have sadness that I can't physically give her a hug, but there's so much more that has come. I feel a deep honor. Oh my goodness, what an honor it was to just raise her and to know that I was her mom. And just, she's so alive, non-physically. Non-physically, she's powering us to do what we do.
That's I mean, everything you're saying I can completely resonate with. I didn't go through that experience you went through, but I certainly went through raising a son that was suicidal and having to contemplate what that might look like, how I would keep sort of living if that did in fact take place, and everything you shared is what I was telling myself, just to prepare myself just in case. But I knew that's how I'd feel. And my mother just passed away last year, and it's the same thing. I just feel she's with me all the time. It's different. It's changed, but it's what's changed is the physical, as you say, the holding, but nothing else. I actually have little jokes with her and say, we don't need BA anymore. We can just be with each other all the time, So much cheaper. So, but thank you for sharing that. It's so beautiful, and I think that will give a lot of comfort to a lot of people that are struggling with death. And I think I have to say probably the worst I could imagine would be losing a child. As I say, I'm a mother myself. But I also wanted to go to you, Rudi. You experienced a different loss, that it wasn't a death, but in a sense it was a death of a life you'd known and was changing. And you're very vocal about that and beautiful in your sharing what that process was like for you. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So my ex-wife, Jenny, I was with Jenny for about 10 years. We traveled all over the world, talking to lots of different people. We co-created the threeprinciplesmovies.com website together. And about 4 years ago now, she kind of just fell in love with another man. It's not that she meant to, it's not as if she sought to do that, but sometimes life is just going to throw things at you, and you just have to do the best you can do with that. And so I kind of found myself paradoxically talking about effortless relationships and a beautiful life, and then all of a sudden I was going through a divorce. It's like, wow, okay. But the thing about difficulties is when you're brought to your knees, you can see love more, because you're not above it, you're with it. And I remember, I'll tell the story, and it sounds like I'm making it up. I'm really not making it up. I remember when Jenny, it was definitely over, and Jenny walked out the house. I experienced, and I think many people who are listening to this, if they've been through their own version, can relate to it. I experienced incredible suffering, mental suffering. Like if someone had tied me up and tortured me, it would have been a breeze compared to my own emotional state at the time. And so Jenny left, and there was this incredibly bad feeling. And then spontaneously this feeling arose, and it was the same feeling I had when I was 20, like a oneness or a dissolving experience, if you will, a love experience. And I said in my mind, is this God? And now I'm not religious. My word for God is a unifying field of energy or potential. So I said, is this God? And it said yes. And I said, well, why is this happening? And it said, because you asked for it to happen. And I said, I didn't ask to break up with my wife. And it said, no, you asked to evolve. This is evolution. And I was like, And I said, but I didn't ask to break up with my wife. And it says, you're not, you're just going to have a different relationship. And I was kind of like, oh. And then I said, okay, if this is God, like, is this God? And then there was a knock on the door. At that moment, I opened it, and it was actually a Jehovah Witness. And the Jehovah Witness gave me a leaflet that said, God is with you. In that exact moment. Now, I've been living in that place for 10 years, and that's the second time they've ever knocked. So you can work out the statistical possibility of that happening in that moment. But what I realized is that we get so attached to a person for our love when we are love as a person. So you go from trying to get love from something in the physical form or from a person, but all the time love is singing and dancing within you. It's your essence. Your essence is love humaning. And I'd kind of forgotten a bit. I was a hypocrite because I was talking about love being within, but it's only when that happened I really, really saw the nature of love is unconditional, meaning it is no conditions it cannot handle. Unconditional, meaning that there is nothing that you can ever do or be or become or have or achieve that makes you any more worthy than you already are, without any of that stuff. And it was probably after my first experience of 20, my biggest evolutionary time of my entire life. So it was true. I asked for evolution, and this is how it shows up. So careful what you wish for. But the other part of the story is that when I really think back on it, and no disrespect to Jenny, we were really in tune. But Jenny's much more in tune with her current partner. I think they're more right for one another. And Dave is the most beautiful human being you can imagine. He's such a gorgeous man. And I met Jules, and I'm tearful just thinking about it. Like, we're so much more in tune than I was with Jenny. Like, sometimes life has a way, and it's looking like it's kicking you down, but it's really lifting you up. And that resonance that we are is really just shuffling the form of our lives around to bring us back in harmony with itself, who we are. And so looking back now, yes, it was difficult at the time, but in retrospect, in hindsight, I'm so pleased it happened. And I'm so pleased I asked to evolve, because I've never been as happy for no reason. I've never felt so much in love without even being in love with anything. But to be able to share that love, that non-personal love, personally with Jules and feel that as a human being, feel that in my body, and now I had children as well. I'm like 48 and I haven't had kids, so for children to be coming into my life as well is such a blessing. So I don't know, love just is. It doesn't look anything like you think it's going to look. It can't be described in words. It's a space of feeling, a resonance before the words. And it's what everybody's seeking, because it's what we're all made from.
Yeah, I know my children sometimes say to me, Mum, why are you so loving? And I'm just like, I'm just living in whatever's flowing out of me. It's not, I love being in love, not like I love being in love with somebody, but I love being in my loving.
Yeah.
It's just why would you want to come from anywhere else? That feels so good. Right. But I hear you. I went through a divorce too, and It's so funny, my thinking, even though it was a mismatch, my thinking at the time was I have 2 little babies and they were strapped on me and I was clinging on for dear life to this cliff thinking, you know, oh my God, there's a precipice below me, I can't let go. And when I finally let go, I dropped like 3 inches and I was like, oh, this was it. This is okay. I think I can survive this. But I'd had so much fear in my head of what it was going to look like, and I also wanted to really respect you both for acknowledging that, because I think in the videos I watched, we live in this community of incredible people, and we have a lot of people that have been married for a very long time and talk about, you know, how the principles have helped them, you know, be in their relationships in a more fulfilling way. But you also point to sort of, you know, listening to that wisdom within, that sometimes, you know, you can still love somebody but not be with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And find a partner that is better suited to you, which I also have. So, which is wonderful. It's so beautiful to hear that. So
but again, like, love doesn't look the way we think it looks, and it can look like if you're married for 40 years, that's the way it should be. But love is so free, it can manifest in ways that doesn't look like love.
Right.
And so when we take away our judgments, our opinions on the way life should look, it doesn't really matter what's happening to someone or what they're going through. We can't use it as a judge of them. There's just the dance of this universal energy, and it will, if it needs to happen, it will completely destroy your security and your form, if it be your will, to reorientate you back towards love. And so again, from a different perspective, I don't know why things happen like they happen, but I do know that sometimes things are needed, and you can't pin love down to being a particular thing. It's just everything.
I love that too. I remember you were talking about the deconstruction to construct. There has to, because you know, exactly, we have this insane belief that things should stay the same, but they're never the same. They're always changing. But within that, you know, share about a little bit more about that. I love how you describe that, about the deconstruction to construct.
Well, we have this term in humanity that there's creation and destruction, but really there's just the ebb and flow of potential or energy, which looks like it's destroying and then looks like it's creating. But when you get rid of those dualities, there's just the flow of energy, or there's just the universe dancing in a sense. And being this essence in a human form, you need to learn to dance, because it's the thinking that you shouldn't dance that creates the suffering.
Right.
Or that when you learn to dance with it or go with the flow of life, because suffering has very little to do with what's happening to us, and almost everything to do with our resistance to what's happening to us. This is happening, I don't want it to happen, it shouldn't be happening, it should be happening differently, I should be experiencing this differently, etc., 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 and then suffering. So to realize that we live in this experience of ebb and flow and change, and when there's an embrace, not really a faith, it's just seeing the logic that things changes, being able to change with change. Like Jules, like, you know, her son was taken the custody battle and her daughter passed away. I saw her not long after that, and Jules has had the most beautiful life. I was like, wow.
I see it also, the love. I like to use the analogy, we just had a volcano erupt about a year ago, and that looks, when you're in the middle of it, it looks like death and destruction. However, it's nature birthing new life, recreating what was created, but birthing new life, creating new relationships. There were people that came together that didn't even know one another. I had the honor to be there and to experience this and to feel the love and to see the children that were so resilient. The children were the happiest ones of all, even though their home was engulfed by lava and they couldn't find their pets, but still there was so much resilience and love there. But that's nature creating new life.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong metaphor. I live in Malibu, and we just lost a lot of homes last year too, and it did. There was so much beauty in it. I mean, you know, we lost. My boyfriend lost his physical home, but the love and the community and who came together and the richness out of that experience, it was so profound. And like you said, it's, you know, we can look at the destruction of material things, but what it brought was so much more. You know, love and community and sense of that. Yeah. I also love your metaphor for the, you know, the contractions, giving birth, you know, the sort of contractions and then the lull. It's, you know, one is not good, one is not bad. It's just what is in bringing forth new creation. And it's that acceptance and that surrender of going with what is. It's the resistance, as you say, that is causing our suffering.
Yeah, accepting it and allowing it holistically.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some of my pain through the divorce was, I remember looking out the window and I was alone in the house. I had all the memories of what had gone before. And I was thinking, God, you know, I need to move house. And then that quietness overcame me. He says, no, you need to move on. It's the holding to what was that creates the suffering. And it's the moving on that allows you to move into the natural flow of life. Life is a flow. It is impermanent. It changes. Resistance to the fact of that will create suffering. And it's innocent because we don't want to suffer. We want to, I love security. I love having a place to stay. I love the stability of life, but also to know that the energy field behind it is, it just does what it does. And so when we roll with that, you may not have what you want, but you have a space within that moves you through pretty much anything.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. So I just want to talk a little bit about what you offer, because I know you do coach training and you do individual coaching. So just share a little bit about what it is that people, besides the free, all those videos and everything we can get on your website, but what else do you have coming up?
So we train people to facilitate the understanding, the three principles understanding that we're talking about. We have probably about 20 people a year. It's all online. And we've just been getting the video testimonials and they've been bringing me to tears.
Turned into a
so
family.
Beautiful. Yeah, we basically create a family every year and everyone supports and loves one another. They transform, and then they also be able to articulate this in a way they can talk to family members with their permission, obviously. And populations, they get experience facilitating, they practice doing one-to-ones. Because we didn't want people just to get a better headspace, we wanted them to uncover their hearts. And an implication of being more heartfelt, it calms the mind down. It can happen both ways, obviously. And so we run that 9-month program every year. And we run something called the Consciousness Expansion Program, which is training around the energetic nature of reality. So myself and Jules had many experiences that people would call super ordinary, but actually they're very, very super ordinary. They're normal, but we get conditioned out of it. And so really the Conscious Expansion Program is taking the conditioning away for us to fall back into our innate, our natural nature. And an implication of that is an expanded perception of reality and being able to experience a much deeper order potential behind life and explore within that. I don't know what you'd say about that.
That's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
The principles actually the natural implication of understanding where the principles are pointing are just that.
Yes.
Well, I love the way you two share. It's very accessible. It's very ordinary. I love Elsie's. I can see, it's ordinary. It's not, I think there's a lot of dialogue right now that are taking a lot of the conversation, the principles into the sort of non-duality, duality. It's a lot for me. Everybody's different, but for me, it takes me into my head, which I don't particularly want to be in. I love to just be in the feeling. And when I listen to you share the work, I'm just 100% in the feeling. I don't have to sort of figure anything out, which I love. So thank you for doing such amazing work. And unfortunately, our time is up. It goes really fast. But thank you for joining us. And I'd love to see you in person one day. So if you come to LA, give me a call.
Or if you come to Hawaii.
Yes, even better.
Also, Del, thank you for the work that you do, because I know you're creating a lot of these beautiful resources for the world. So I just wanted to appreciate the good work that you're doing too. So bless you.
All right. Thank you so much.